Hi, this is Pat Moorhead, and the 6.5 is live on the road at Cloudera Headquarters in sunny Santa Clara. Dan, how are you, my friend?
It's great to be here.
It is. Man, I love 6.5 remote. I love 6.5 at events, but I love the most. I do love, a smaller, more intimate scenario. And here we are, Cloudera Headquarters.
Absolutely, and I love having the opportunity to talk to the business leaders, especially when we get to break some of the newest CEOs here in the Valley, have a conversation with them about something important like big data, AI, future of the enterprise.
It's funny, I started my career a long time ago.
It was a
few years before you did. I think you might have been in high school, maybe before that.
It was a long time ago.
But data has always fundamentally been the basis for anything great that comes out of the other end for businesses and even governments. And it is great to be here, and I do want to introduce Charles. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good to see you. Luke.
Great to see you guys again.
6.5 veteran. We've seen you at Evolve, we've seen you remote. It's great to see you again. But Charles, new CEO, super happy to see you.
Thank you, it's great to be here. Although I'm a little concerned, I feel like he might have been in middle school when I started my career, so I'm wrestling with that.
It's okay, we can both go to therapy and talk about it. So
I have a feeling this might be a conversation we're going to have later. But Charles, it is great to have you here. We've been following Cloudera very closely for a long time, and the company's been doing a lot of very interesting things, and it finds itself at this really important inflection, this important moment with data. And we'll talk more about that throughout, but let's start with the big question. You've got a pretty extensive pedigree. You've done some great work in the past. Cloudera came knocking on your door. I mean, what drove the decision, and what's your big mandate here now that you've joined as CEO of Cloudera?
Well, Dan, I appreciate the question. The challenge here is, or the opportunity is growth. If you think about Cloudera, one of the foundational companies in big data, the coming together of Hortonworks and Cloudera created the current company. There was a big project, tons of R&D to bring the two platforms together. We've now introduced and brought to market CDP, which is really a culmination of kind of the best of both worlds of Cloudera and Hortonworks. The vast majority of our customers are now on that platform. So now the focus is on adding value, adding technology, so we can really start to deliver on some of the opportunities that are created by increased focus on AI and ML and big hunks of data to train ML models. But we had to get to this foundational platform space first. So when the investors in the company came to me and said, hey, are you interested in joining Cloudera? The criteria I thought about were a company that makes a difference in markets that matter, with some industry tailwinds, the aforementioned AI and ML trends. And really when you look at that opportunity set, I was very excited about joining, and it's an honor to be involved in the company at this stage that is kind of a point of inflection, right? Looking back, we've laid a foundation for a lot of growth, and going forward, we have, I think, some differentiated technology, point number one, but point number two, I think we also have a tailwind at our back. So I'm just hopeful we can do the right work to leverage and maximize that opportunity.
It's incredible if I look at the history of data and what gets done at companies. Essentially, it's fractalizing. I mean, it's like everywhere, right? There were the days where you had a monolithic, all your data was part of the application, and then it became a little bit disconnected, but it was always in the same box. And the fractalization of the data is just this amazing thing to see, and it just keeps happening. I am curious though, Luke, you talk to customers every day. What are they saying right now? I'm going to use very large areas here, data and AI. What are they telling you right now?
It's just such an interesting moment, because not only do we have an inflection in the company's history, but there's a huge inflection in the market. And what I would say is the third huge hype wave of the last 15 years. You went back to 2010, every company on planet Earth was saying, we have to do big data. A CEO would read in Harvard Business Review that if you're not doing big data, you're going to go out of business, right? So I was at Hortonworks at the time, and every company you walked into, they would say, we need to do big data. And I'd say, well, what do you want to do? Like, I don't know, we just have to do it or we're going to be out of business, Then you had a similar wave happen with cloud, where every company was like, we have to go all in the cloud or we're going to be irrelevant. And now you see the same thing with AI, and specifically generative AI. So the conversations I have with customers are very similar. They repeat themselves over and over again, which is, customers are understanding that they have to do generative AI, but they don't know what to do, how to do it. And there's been this huge hype for probably 9 months now, but very little's been delivered. And the problem is because most companies don't have a great data strategy. And without the data, you don't have AI, right?
Isn't it interesting though, is what they're all saying isn't very different than 2010.
Yeah.
They're still saying the whole thing about data management, data layer. Luke, the AI didn't change any of the fact that if you didn't have your data right, you can't do all the AI stuff. And it was the same thing with the first wave of big data.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, and data is the constant, right? If you look at, we have generational leap forwards in processing technologies, analytic technologies, AI, ML, but what doesn't change is the data layer, right? And so that's what we've been focusing on for the last 15 years is how do we build a sound, secure, governed, managed data layer that enables the hot AI and ML tools du jour, but then also what's going to come 18 months from now.
Yeah, I mean, you guys really did, I mean, you nailed it there. Cloudera did start big data, and here we are, we're suddenly into this generative AI area. I'm curious, what trends are you watching right now? And I'll give this one to you, Charles. What trends are you watching out there that kind of take us to this next generation, dare I say, Cloudera 2.0, Cloudera 3.0?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of big things, but first and foremost, the trend toward making AI part of your business, you can make better business decisions. It used to be a very small number of very large companies could afford to make those investments in what we just called big data. That bar is coming down. So it might have been the 2,000 or 3,000 biggest companies in the world, now it's the 5,000 biggest. And so that trend toward thinking about AI, not as kind of an esoteric research project, but really what can I do to harness my data to help me make better business decisions? I think that's kind of critical step one. And then two, something you said earlier about the idea of data being resident everywhere, going back to the days of, we had embedded databases back in the day.
Exactly.
Right? Now data exists in on-prem structures, in private clouds, increasingly moving to public clouds. And the challenge I think that a large global corporation has is how to manage data across those multiple environments, put control around it, you can use it to go and train big models, to go and bring the power of multiple data sources together. Think about a bank. A bank has 17 different data sources, US based, non-US based, on-prem, cloud. What we're trying to do right now, what is the next big trend, is to create ability to manage workloads across that hybrid environment. So what that means is we're spending time and effort and money on building out a much more usable, much more accessible hybrid control layer, which is a huge step in terms of the usability of the technology from a business user's perspective.
Yeah, the single pane of glass to be able to manage all that data gets so important as you move forward. And listen, just because I called the hybrid multi-cloud 10 years ago, we analysts, we do little victory laps every once in a while.
Looks like you're going to be right.
I know I'm going to be right, and for me it wasn't too far because quite frankly, it's what customers want. They don't want to be told what to do and where to do it, and typically data gravitates to the data in the compute go to the best place it possibly can to be the most efficient and useful. And as long as you can manage that data, and you can manage those systems as far out as you can, everything works. And I really do appreciate the investments that the company has made into CDP that basically says, hey, on-prem cloud, Azure, Google Cloud, AWS, it's there.
And we'll talk more about investments in a minute, by the way, because I want to hit you up about that. But beforehand, I've judged your data awards multiple years now.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I always found to be very compelling about having spent the time to read your customers this is a process.
Yeah.
I read these things. Some of these, when you have some time, Charles, in your new role, go through some of these, because it was fascinating for me to hear from the customers how they've approached these problems and how Cloudera uniquely enabled the company to solve those problems. So Luke, as you're listening to Charles talk about his vision and the trends, I kept thinking about some of these global banks in Malaysia where I would read these, and it seems like they're really dealing with these exact things.
Well, yeah, and like Pat said, it's efficient and useful places for the data to run, but also it's economical, right? I mean, OCBC Bank's a great example. Huge multinational bank based in Singapore. They just spoke at one of our events about a month ago. It was one of the most compelling presentations I've seen from anyone on AI. They today make 4 million decisions a day powered by AI, driven by AI. That's before generative AI, right? They see generative AI then as a leap forward in what they can do with enterprise AI. But for them, they have to look at where should they run these workloads, right? Obviously, ChatGPT, OpenAI, opened a lot of eyes, right? Opened a lot of possibilities. And so they've done a lot of experimentation, development in the cloud where they have lots of resources and availability, but also a lot of cost. But they experiment there, they play with things, they test out ideas and hypotheses. Then once they want to productionalize it and get into a cost-effective constraint, they run those machine learning workloads on premises using open source LLMs. But the constant, again, back to my original point, is the data. In both cases, whether it's OpenAI in the cloud or it's open source LLMs on premises, the data is in Cloudera. It's secured, managed, governed centrally by Cloudera, and then served up to whatever AI engine they want to use that's most economical and most beneficial to their business. But I think that, just layering on that too, this open lakehouse concept has been super interesting to watch. I know you guys have been tracking that for a while, but
You were one of the first to jump on it.
yeah,
to give you some credit.
Once we announced we had an open data lakehouse, the next week I saw 5 other vendors had an open data
Exactly.
lakehouse. It's sort of interesting.
Surprise.
But what's happened, again, back to economics, is that you've got people wanting to take advantage of all of these really powerful analytic tools and applications today. And what's happened is data just gets replicated and moved around to all these different places, and you have a data governance nightmare and a cost nightmare. So I'm talking to customers, in fact, just last week I was with the largest healthcare company in the world, talking about their data architectures and platforms. And they stream in real time all their patient data. It gets streamed, it gets put into a cloud data warehouse. But then when they want to do machine learning, they have to then export it and import it into a machine learning tool, right? So we're working a lot with customers right now saying, how do you manage all your data wherever it lies, manage it once and centrally store it in an open, interoperable format, and then use any tooling of your choice on top of that to make business insights and business power?
Yeah, it's very complex, and I love that you mentioned the compliance and governance around data, because that's probably one of the sort of unsung complications that every enterprise. So your company has historically taken the largest customers in the world. I believe you have some monumental number in terms of the amount of data under management at Cloudera.
25 exabytes, so probably as much as anyone has. And
That's right up there with the hyperscalers.
Yeah.
And that's a massive undertaking, but dealing with the compliance, the PII data, sovereignty across, borders is complex and something you've really focused on. But in order to stay competitive, and in this new role, Charles, you're going to be under pressure to invest. Mm-hmm. The market is going to expect Cloudera to keep up. Of course, you also partner and compete with the biggest, hyperscalers on the planet. Mm-hmm. But you have decades of experience and knowledge. I'm guessing, though, the world's going to want to hear, what are you going to invest in? What are the things you're going to focus on now to get that growth?
Yeah, so the good news is we live in a nice neighborhood. The bad news is the cost of upkeep is very high. And something that Luke said I wanted to add on to, and it's kind of also an area of investment, but the idea that we've seen customers early on, whether it's business use case or information governance use case, so we're learning a lot about how the biggest customers are tackling their biggest challenges. And I think there's an opportunity there. But going back to your broader point, the focus is around growth, and growth is go-to-market initiatives, but also new product initiatives. So we're launching investments around a couple of key areas that we think are going to start to pay dividends, probably not in the next 6 months, but in the next 9 to 12 months, around improving our capabilities around AI and helping customers manage their big hunks of data serving AI, around building or accelerating the build of that single pane of glass that we talked about in terms of the requirements around managing hybrid workloads. And then lastly, I think a lot of investments around our public cloud capability, whether that's technology or go-to-market initiatives. And then finally, you'll start to see Cloudera actually have a broader public presence in terms of seeing and hearing our name in places you haven't heard it previously. And all those things are big initiatives for us. And one of the things that the board wanted to make sure that we did here is basically to realize the opportunity that's in front of the company. And a big part of that is making the right investments right now.
So Luke, you talked a little bit about AI and multi-cloud, but I'm curious, obviously, you're not just coming up with the roadmap on your own. The two of you are collaborating just a little bit on this, but
they don't let me in the roadmap discussions in the early stages.
Right.
I get to see the charts when they're done and
Observer.
But I'm curious.
Advice
can
and
you
consent.
Specifically react to some of the specific investments that he's talking to. Obviously, you got these from customers, or you've seen this movie before. You know them so well. What they're going to be asking for.
Yeah. So we
Any
have
specifics on that.
We have to make it easier for customers to build generative AI applications, right? The thing that we all love about generative AI is it's so easy. I can go to ChatGPT, I can ask questions, it's fast, I get answers. But when an enterprise wants to go implement generative AI, there's a lot of questions and considerations they have to take in. And so that's what we need to work on. Not every customer is like OCBC Bank, where they have a huge slew of engineers that they can go and invest and build these apps. We need to help customers build apps easier.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking that generative AI is a lot different than machine learning and deep learning from a data perspective, if nothing else. For the first time, you're combining different types of data in a very big way. And I'm not talking about just doing a customer service chatbot that looks at PDFs that you use from, what the engineers put there as notes and how to use this. I'm talking about connecting ERP to finance to CRM to marketing, manufacturing, all of this. Doesn't that just raise the game?
Yeah, it raises a lot of concerns for major enterprises, especially highly regulated enterprises, right? I recently did a CIO roundtable, and I was surprised to hear how many customers are saying they need to do generative AI on premises precisely because of those security concerns, right? In fact, federal government entity was saying that they have executive orders that require them to do AI in a private cloud environment because of ethical AI. So they need to constrain all the data that you're talking about. The potentials of generative AI also provide a lot of risk as well. So unlimited possibilities, unlimited risk, that's what we need to help customers manage.
Yeah, but so much risk, so much complexity creates so much opportunity.
So much opportunity, totally. Yeah.
And so for Cloudera, at least my take as an analyst is this story isn't over yet. And the complexities that enterprises are facing to try to address the opportunity with data means they need very capable partners. They have to be constantly able to deal with the shifting and changing of business models. But at the same time, the experience matters.
Yeah.
And that's been one of the reasons, Charles, why I really do think Cloudera is in a very good position is people want to discount at times. Oh, the new cloud player on the block, born on cloud. But that's not how the enterprise is functioning. So, for all the people out there that are maybe hearing from you, this might be the first time they're hearing from you. How do you rile up the troops? How do you get the Cloudera customers, the Cloudera, employees fired up for, what should be the next decade of really exciting growth?
Yeah, I mean, I again, looking forward versus looking back, we have so much opportunity delivering CDP, getting it to where it's a amazingly capable platform for data management is a starting point for us, not an end point.
Right.
So you look at how you can add capabilities onto that platform. The problems we're solving for customers right now, a lot of the customers are solving those problems as Luke said, with the expertise of their own internal folks. Productizing or using abstractable case studies or best practices opens up an aperture of market opportunity that we've never seen before as a company. And so I think what's most exciting to me is being here very early in what I think is a kind of a next generation wave of opportunity in a company that has a startup-like opportunity, but with a foundation of our customers are the leaders in every industry. We've got more than $1 billion of revenue. We have global scale. I think that's a pretty rare opportunity to find in the software space these days. So we're very excited about it.
And I think it's exciting, again, having someone who's here in the early days of big data, helping consultatively guide customers to make impactful, transformative, disruptive business decisions with their data is what really fueled me and drove me in the early days of Hortonworks. And we're doing the same thing again right now with generative AI, which is extremely exciting.
Yeah, so those of us who have been in software for a long time, we forget that the software actually exists to help our customers run their businesses better, and we are really well positioned to go deliver that.
And I think that's a great way to end it here. Luke, Charles, thanks so much for joining the 6-5.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
All right, everyone, hit that subscribe button. Join Patrick and I for all of the episodes here on the 6-5. We are on the road here in Santa Clara at beautiful Cloudera Headquarters. We've got to go for now. Thanks for tuning in.